Everyone thinks I cut ties because I'm selfish, but the truth is uglier than they'd ever believe. I didn't leave my family. I escaped them. I got the call a week before Christmas. My mom's voice cracked on the voicemail, trembling between sobs and sniffles. She said she missed me. That the holidays weren't the same without me. That everyone would be there this year, and maybe, just maybe, we could feel like a real family again. I played that voicemail twice before calling her back. And yeah, I said I'd come. I pushed back a work trip I'd been planning for months. Booked a dog sitter for the week. Packed my trunk with carefully wrapped presents, not the usual lazy gift cards, but real gifts I'd taken the time to pick for each of them. And then I drove. 8 hours straight, from Chicago to the middle of nowhere outside Cincinnati, convincing myself with every mile that maybe this year would be different. By the time I pulled into their quiet, too-perfect neighborhood, it was dark. Christmas lights glowed from every porch, but not a single sound echoed down the street. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister, "Hurry up. I have to pee." I didn't get it then. I sure would later. I hauled my bag to the porch and rang the bell. My mom opened the door with a wide smile that didn't even reach her eyes. "Great, you're here," she said, stepping aside like it was already settled. "You're going to watch Mandy's kids. We're heading to Hawaii." For a second, I thought I misheard her. Mandy strutted past me in flip-flops and a tank top, mid-December, mind you, and muttered to the kids, "Don't wipe your feet on him." They laughed. My parents laughed. Mandy smirked. And I just stood there in the foyer, gripping my duffel bag like an idiot who had just driven 8 hours to get the punchline. I asked my mom if this was some kind of joke. Nope, they were dead serious. Their flights were booked for the next morning, and they just needed me to handle the kids for a week. As if I didn't have a life. As if my time was worthless. "You're not doing anything anyway, right?" my mom asked, tilting her head like she was asking me to water the plants instead of babysit 2 feral children. That's when it slipped out. Something I hadn't planned to say, but the words just tore themselves loose. I got the job. I'm moving across the country in 2 weeks. This is my last Christmas here. The air in the room froze. My dad's face went pale, like he'd just swallowed glass. My mom's smile shattered. Mandy rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. And then, the begging started. "Please, stay. Please, just a few days. Hawaii isn't that long. We'll bring you something nice. You can still help. You'll always be our lifesaver." But the truth was out. They never invited me because they missed me. They invited me because I was reliable. The one who could be guilt-tripped into showing up. The one who never said no. Not this time. They just didn't know it yet. I went down to the basement that night, stepping over Legos, sticky iPads, and broken dolls. My old bed? Gone. My mom's excuse? "We turned your room into something more useful." I lay on the futon, staring at the ceiling, letting it all sink in. Every single visit had been on their terms. Never mine. By morning, the house was chaos. My mom barking about sunscreen. My dad cursing at the airline app. Mandy shoving her kids toward the door, already sugared up from cereal. Nobody even looked at me until they were ready to leave. "Thanks again for doing this," my mom said, suitcase already in the trunk. She pressed a wrinkled sheet of paper into my hand. Bedtimes. Snack rules. A list of shows they could watch. Mandy handed me a $20 bill like it was hush money. For pizza or something. And just like that, they were gone. Driving off like criminals making a clean getaway. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that they had made one fatal mistake. Because later that afternoon, while searching for the Wi-Fi password, I opened a drawer. Inside was a folder. Their flight itinerary. Hotel confirmation. A bill. And when I saw the name on the account, my stomach dropped. It wasn't theirs. It was mine. They had charged everything, the resort, the rental car, the spa treatments, even a snorkeling tour, to my credit card. Mandy had used the old account I'd let her access years ago. The one she swore she'd cancelled. She hadn't. I sat there staring at the receipt, feeling like someone had sucker punched me. Then I did the only thing that made sense. I cancelled it all. Every single reservation. No refunds. No resort. No car. No excursions. I watched the cancellation emails roll in one after another, and for the first time all week. I smiled. And then I waited. At 11:42 that night, the first call came in. Mom. Then Dad. Then Mandy. Over and over. Until the text started, "Why are we locked out of the hotel? What's going on?" I didn't answer. The kids were finally asleep upstairs. The house was quiet. I sat on the back porch with a beer in my hand, staring at the orange haze of the city sky, waiting for the storm I knew was coming. And when it came, oh, it was glorious. The storm finally hit on the third night. The kids and I had spent the day in our own little world, burning pancakes in the morning, watching cartoons at a volume that probably rattled the windows, and building what could only be described as the ugliest pillow fort ever constructed. By evening, they were laughing, yawning, and finally winding down for bed. That's when the front door flew open. No knock. No warning. Just Mandy stomping in, her flip-flops slapping against the hardwood. Her hair was a tangled mess, her forehead blistered red from sunburn, and her sunglasses dangled off one ear. My mom was right behind her, looking 5 years older, with tear-streaked cheeks and shoulders sagging. My dad trailed in last, dragging their battered luggage like he'd just lost a war. "You think this is funny?" Mandy snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. The kids froze mid-step on the staircase. One of them whispered, "Told you she'd come back mad," before bolting upstairs. I told them firmly, "Bed. Now." They obeyed without another word. And then it started. Mandy came at me like a hurricane, calling me selfish, accusing me of destroying her only real vacation in years, painting me as some petty manchild who couldn't handle one simple family responsibility. My mom stood behind her, nodding along like a broken bobblehead. My dad leaned on the counter, silent, like he'd already surrendered. I let her rant. 5 whole minutes of venom, spit, and finger-pointing. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I just waited. When she finally stopped to breathe, I slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" my mom asked cautiously. "Bank statement," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. I pulled out a second paper. "And this?" "A notice from my lawyer." I reported the fraud. My father straightened as if to step forward, but I raised a hand. "Don't." "She used my card without my permission. Over $4,000. You know exactly what that's called." My mom's face crumbled. Mandy exploded again, her words tripping over each other in a shrill mess. She shrieked about family loyalty, about how I was blowing it out of proportion, about how no judge would care. She told me if I pushed this, I'd regret it. And then she slipped. "Go ahead, Nathan. Report it. You think mom and dad will leave anything to someone who stabs their own family in the back?" The room went still. My mother looked horrified. My dad turned away. I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled. "Thanks for confirming that's how you see me." Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. Mandy's own voice filled the room, her screaming into a voicemail 2 days earlier, bragging that she'd used my card because it was easier, telling me to just fix it like I always do. Her face drained of color. "You recorded me?" I nodded. "Already sent to my lawyer." "So yeah, Mandy, go ahead and threaten me again." For the first time in my life, I saw my mother sit down on her own, shoulders sagging as if the truth was finally too heavy. My dad stayed quiet. Mandy stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frames on the wall rattled. I stayed one last night in that house, mostly for the kids. But I knew I was done. Done being their scapegoat, their babysitter, their safety net. At dawn, I grabbed my duffel bag, left the house as messy as they left my life, and walked out the same door they had when they ditched me for Hawaii. This time, though, I wasn't coming back. The silence didn't last long. By the time I crossed into Indiana on my way back to Chicago, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Dozens of missed calls. A flood of texts. 12 voicemails. And then, something I hadn't seen in years, the old family group chat came alive. The same one that hadn't buzzed since my grandmother's funeral. Mandy had already gone nuclear. She'd typed out this carefully polished sob story, sending it to every relative with a phone. According to her, I'd ruined her vacation out of spite. I'd tricked her into using my card and then turned around and threatened legal action like some ungrateful snake. She ended it with, "Family means nothing to him. He's changed." That part was true. I had changed. But here's the thing Mandy didn't realize, people had been biting their tongues for years. All she did was hand them an excuse to finally open their mouths. The first response came from Aunt Melanie, "Didn't you once borrow my car for a weekend and return it 2 months later with a broken window?" Then my cousin Josh chimed in, "Nathan doesn't need to manipulate anyone. He's the only one in this family with a job that doesn't involve lying or commissions." It snowballed from there. One by one, people started dropping receipts. Old debts Mandy never repaid. Birthdays she forgot. Christmas dinners she showed up to late and drunk. Somebody called her a walking tax write-off. Another reminded her she'd once made guests pay for their own food at her kid's birthday party. By the time I pulled into my apartment's parking garage, the chat was a full-on roast session. My mom tried to play peacemaker with a weak, "Let's all calm down," but it was too late. Mandy had armed the family, and they turned the guns on her first. That night, just past midnight, my dad called. No hello, no small talk, just a rushed, half-hearted plea. He said things had gotten out of hand. That Mandy never meant to use my card. That maybe we could all just sit down and talk it out like adults. I asked him one question, "Why didn't you stop it when you saw it happening?" Dead silence. Then, finally, I didn't think it was that serious. And that was always the problem, wasn't it? Nothing was serious until it cost them something. The next few days, my inbox lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins. Uncles. A woman I barely remembered from a reunion in Michigan. Most said the same thing, "Good for you. It's about time someone called her out." Then Sunday rolled around. Late morning, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find my mother standing there. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes red and puffy. She wore the same old beige coat she used to put on whenever she had to come to school because I'd gotten into trouble. I hadn't seen that coat in years. "I drove all night," she said softly. "I need to talk to you." I didn't let her in. We stood in the hallway as she explained how Mandy had locked herself in her room, how the kids were staying with their dad, how my father wasn't speaking to either of them. "The family is falling apart," she whispered. "You have to help fix it." She cried, quietly but insistently. She told me I was overreacting, that yes, mistakes were made, but families work through things. She said I should understand how hard Mandy's life was as a single mom, how stressful the world was lately. And then came the kicker, did I really want to be the reason things got worse? I let her finish. And then I told her something she wasn't ready to hear. I told her I'd moved on. That I didn't need her anymore. That I wasn't going to set myself on fire just to keep her warm. Not again. Not ever again. She tried to answer, but I stepped back and gently closed the door. I stood there listening. She didn't knock again. Didn't beg. Just silence. Then the faint groan of the elevator as it carried her away. That was the last time I saw my mother face to face. The very next day, my attorney called. His voice carried that tone lawyers get when they're trying not to laugh. Mandy finally responded, he said. Through a lawyer, of course. One of her friends knew a guy who owed her a favor. The official position? That I had implied consent by giving her access to the card years ago. Their words, he provided the means, therefore he approved the charges. I almost laughed out loud. What they didn't know was that months earlier, I had already flagged that card with the bank. Every transaction. Every timestamp. And the hotel had confirmed the reservation came from Mandy's IP address. Her name was splattered across the paperwork like spray paint. There was no case. And her lawyer knew it. That afternoon, he called mine directly and said the words I'd been waiting for, she wants this to go away quietly. I didn't answer right away. I let her sweat. Meanwhile, the once chaotic family group chat went dark, deleted, probably by Mandy. My mom tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. My dad sent one of those vague boomer texts, hope you're okay. Things are complicated. Let's reconnect soon. I ignored it. But then something unexpected happened. Mandy's ex reached out. Out of nowhere. Just a simple message, heard what happened. Not surprised. You okay? We ended up talking for over an hour. Different details, same playbook. Guilt, manipulation, entitlement, her greatest hits. He told me how she'd bled him dry, then spun the story so he looked like the bad guy. He even offered to connect me with his old lawyer if I needed backup. Before hanging up, he said something that stuck with me, you're not the first person she's used, you're just the first one to fight back. By Friday, my lawyer had drawn up the final offer, no criminal charges, no court, no public circus, on one condition. Full repayment. Every dollar, in writing, through her lawyer. 90 days. No extensions. Her response? A tantrum dressed up as a legal email. She claimed she didn't have the funds, that this would ruin her, that I was punishing her children. That last part, that's what really burned me. The way she used her kids like human shields. So I told my lawyer, move forward. The next few weeks were quiet. My mom went radio silent. I think she finally realized the usual guilt trips weren't going to work. My dad mailed me a generic Hallmark card about forgiveness and healing. I tossed it straight into the trash without opening it. And then one morning, it happened. The remittance came through. Full repayment. Every last cent. I sat there staring at the confirmation email, not because I was surprised, but because I knew exactly what it meant. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't repentant. She was scared. And honestly, that was enough. That weekend, I made one final trip back near their town, not to see them, but to clear out the last of my stuff from a storage unit I'd been paying for. While I was there, my aunt, the one who always hosted Thanksgiving, messaged me. She said the family was planning a small get-together in a few weeks, and they hoped I'd come. I stared at her message for a long time before typing my reply. I thanked her, told her I appreciated the invite. But my answer was simple. No. I wouldn't be there. Not anymore. I was done being the one they laughed at, leaned on, or pushed to the sidelines. I'd spent years twisting myself into knots to keep ties with people who only ever called when they needed something. But this time, I finally walked away. And it's strange, almost funny, how quickly the noise stopped once they realized they couldn't pin everything on me anymore. After the repayment hit my account and the emails from their lawyer dried up, the world just went quiet. No last-minute emergencies. No voicemails dripping with guilt about how we used to be a family. Just silence. Thanksgiving came first. My aunt, the same one who stood up for me in the family group chat, texted me a photo of her table. Half the chairs were empty. She added, Mandy didn't show up. Neither did your parents. Don't think anyone missed the drama. Then Christmas rolled around. For years, no matter how bad things got, I always went. Even in college, when I had to scrape together gas money, I showed up. But not this time. I stayed in Chicago. Instead, I went to a holiday misfits potluck one of my coworkers hosted. A bunch of people with their own scars, people who'd walked away from toxic families too. We drank cheap boxed wine, ate overcooked lasagna, and played dumb board games that nobody remembered the rules to. And you know what? It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. There was this guy at the party, quiet, awkward. He'd cut ties with his dad after years of emotional manipulation. At one point he asked me, how did you know it was time to finally leave? I told him something I'd read years ago on Reddit, back when I still thought maybe I was the problem. It said, if they didn't treat you like family when they had you, they can't call it betrayal when you leave. That line stuck with me, because that's exactly what it was. My family only cared when I was useful. When I drove 8 hours to babysit. When I swallowed my pride and paid for things they wouldn't. When I stayed quiet. The second I said no, I was the villain. For weeks, I kept expecting someone to break the silence. Maybe my mom with one of her fake, just checking in, texts that always ended in a guilt trip. Or my dad pretending none of it ever happened, trying to rope me into talking about sports like we were just two regular guys. But nothing came. And the longer the silence stretched, the lighter I felt. By February, I went back to clear out the last storage unit near their house. I tossed what I didn't need, donated the rest, yearbooks, holiday cards, an old Xbox controller I never fixed. At the very back, I found a shoebox of family photos. Dusty, bent at the corners. I flipped through maybe 5 before I shut the lid and left it in the donation pile. I thought I'd feel something. Regret. Sadness. Nostalgia. I didn't. A week later, Mandy sent one last text. 4 words, are you happy now? I didn't reply. Because the answer wasn't the kind of happy she was thinking about. Not the loud kind, not the kind where you jump up and down. It was quieter than that. The kind where you wake up without your stomach in knots. The kind where you make plans for the future and don't measure them against how much emotional energy your family is going to steal from you. The kind where you finally stop living as someone else's backup plan. I don't talk to them anymore. I probably never will. But I don't hate them. I don't wish them pain. I just don't wish them anything at all. And maybe that's what peace really looks like. I really didn't think I'd be back here. Honestly, after the chaos over the holidays, I thought that book was slammed shut for good. No phone calls, no texts, no birthday card stuffed with passive-aggressive Bible verses. Just silence. And it was perfect. Until last week. I came home from work and found a certified letter waiting for me. Official-looking, heavy envelope, the kind that makes your stomach flip. I thought maybe it was taxes. Or something with my job. Nope, a law firm. Not mine. My parents. They've been talking to a probate lawyer. And according to this letter, they want to discuss adjustments to the structure of future inheritance and family financial responsibilities. That's the actual phrase. I read it 3 times, thinking maybe I was imagining it. But nope, it was exactly what it sounded like. They're drafting some kind of new trust or estate plan that includes a clause about caregiving roles. Translation, they're trying to lock in a legal arrangement where I, the same guy they abandoned with 2 kids and a stolen credit card, would be obligated to carry the family burdens. Care, debts, property, whatever they decide. In exchange, I'd remain in the will. The audacity. I didn't even finish the letter before I was on the phone with my lawyer. He actually laughed. Not a chuckle, not a polite smile. A full-on, "You've got to be kidding me," laugh. He said he's seen this move before, usually when families are desperate for control. Dangle the promise of inheritance like a carrot, then slowly rope the reliable one into taking care of everything no one else wants to touch. And yes, it can be contested. If they try to push it, I can fight back. But the fact that they're even thinking this way? Wild. And here's the kicker. My lawyer got a little whisper from someone on the other side. Guess who's behind this brilliant scheme? Mandy. Of course. She's trying to claw her way back into good standing with my parents, but part of her little deal is shifting every long-term responsibility off herself and onto me. Debt? Me. Caregiving? Me. Property headaches? Me. Even after everything, after the Hawaii stunt, after the fraud, after she dragged my name through the mud, she still thinks I'm the fallback plan. So yeah, looks like the saga isn't over. But I'll tell you this, if they want to drag me into a legal showdown over a house I don't even want and obligations I never asked for, fine. I've got time. I've got proof. And this time, I'm ready. Reddit was right. Just when you think you're out, they try to pull you back in. But not this time. Not ever again.